Welcome to the work session here we got set up. May I recognize some of the faces? Hey, Ron. Hey, Dave. Oh, we got the mayor here. I got this official now. So who's doing the presentation? Well, I know James likes to talk, so does Grayson. So which one of y'all is gonna do the talking?
I'll start, okay?
What a shock. Let's kick it off, buddy.
All right, thank you all so much. James Coughlin, Executive Director of the Camden County Joint Development Authority. So tonight we're here to consider the county's participation in a tax allocation district that's being proposed for the city of Kingsland. Actually, I guess not proposed. The city has already done a resolution to approve this tax allocation district. And this is a project that's being proposed as a cooperation between the city of Kingsland, Camden County, and local developer Ron Sawyer, or Sawyer Development, where he is proposing to install infrastructure, roads, water, sewer, rail crossings, signalization, all of those aspects as part of a large mixed-use development, and to be reimbursed over time using the increment created by the TAD. So the Joint Development Authority is sort of taking the lead on this and running point on it, if you will. And we've engaged Ken Blakely at Blakely and Associates to do all the TAD calculations and things like that. So I'm going to ask Ken Blakely to come up and share a little bit about the TAD.
Y'all gonna blame it on him, huh?
Good evening. Good to see you all. My name's Ken Blakely with KB Advisory Group. Wanted to just talk you through a little bit about what is being proposed by Kingsland. Kingsland, as James said, has already approved the TAD. That municipalities or counties can form tax allocation districts. Kingsland went ahead and has formed the TAD and approved that. So they're basically at this point ready to go. And we're in the process now of meeting with you, meeting with the school system to see if we can get you to participate with the city in the TAD. See if I'm doing this right. Said it was easy, but there we go. I'm sorry. There we go. City of Kingsland is currently, as I said, has approved the TAD. It has the ability they had a referendum in 2011, basically gave the city the authority to, under Georgia's redevelopment powers law, to consider the creation of one or more TADs. And this would be the second one in the city. How does this process work? Basically, it's a process with a lot of steps. They're all pretty simple. But the first step was the city goes and defines an area that they would like to create the TAD and draw a boundary around that area. And it's typically an area of the city that's either in need of redevelopment or additional development, or it's an area that has lagged other parts of the city in terms of development because it doesn't have any infrastructure. And so if you brought the infrastructure to the site, potentially you could develop that property. Once the city decides on the area, they approve what's called a redevelopment plan. The redevelopment plan is basically the business plan that operates the TAD, and it says these are the boundaries, this is when it was created, this is how we're going to manage it. And one of the key things is you create a special fund, and that special fund is where any additional taxes that are generated, once the district is formed, any additional taxes that are generated in that district from city, county, and schools go into this fund, and then that fund can be used to reinvest back into the area. There's kind of two ways to do that investing. I would call it kind of the old style. The more traditional way was to issue bonds, tax exempt bonds with the money that went into that each year in property taxes, and then you float a bond issue and pay the bonds off with that amount of money. The more common approach today is what's called pay-as-you-go, and that's basically what the city is proposing here. So what happens is effectively what you're going to do is rebate the incremental property taxes back to the developer for a set period of years, and that money will basically retire the debt they're going to incur to build the infrastructure. I would say around the state, 90% of the TADs we're seeing now are going this pay-as-you-go approach versus a bond financing kind of approach. How do TADs work? It's basically a pretty simple idea. You draw a boundary around an area, you figure out how much taxes are currently being collected in the area by the county, the schools, and the municipality in this case. Let's say that's $100,000. You do what's called freeze the base, which means from that point forward, anytime you collect more than that $100,000, it goes into a sinking fund. But that original $100,000 that was going to the county, city, and schools continues to go to them. So there's no loss of revenue that you actually collect. It only
Yeah.
deals with new value. Yes, sir.
I'm rather simple-minded, so if I can kind of ask you questions.
Oh, sure, please.
So I won't give, at this point right here, here's where a lot of confusion comes.
Okay,
And this freezing thing.
right.
You're collecting $100 or $100,000 or whatever, doesn't matter.
Whatever that number is.
Whatever tax revenue that area is generating.
Right,
You say you freeze it.
correct.
It's not the driving factor. Is that the 100,000? Or say there's a millage increase or decrease?
It's 100,000. That's the dollar amount that you were collecting, even if you move the millage
Property
around.
values that were already there
That's correct.
go up, not related to necessarily the improvement.
Right,
So you freeze
right,
at a dollar amount, regardless of millage rates, regardless of any other valuation that go on.
correct.
Okay. that's
And
just-
so whatever that is, let's say, sake of argument, the school board gets half and the county gets a third and the city gets 20%.
Doesn't matter, everybody.
That share stays constant all through the TAD period. So
Based on
you
the
get
dollar
that,
amount.
you keep getting that money. You don't not receive that.
But the point is, it's the dollar amount that
Correct.
controls it. Okay.
It's a dollar amount, correct. Oh, now what happens basically is, so that's that line, the flat line, you're basically getting whatever those dollars are. And then for whatever period the TAD is, what we're proposing here is a maximum of 10 years. At the end of 10 years, if all this development has occurred, you're going to get a huge jump in taxes, the city, county, and schools, because rather than just maybe 1 or 2% growth occurring in this area, you're using this to spark a higher level of development. And so what happens at the end of the TAD period is instead of you're getting $30,000 off that property, you might be getting $1 million or $2 million. So you're kind of investing in the short term to get more revenue on the back end. That's basically the logic behind the whole, how TADs work. If you look around Georgia, TADs have been around since the 1980s. They really didn't get rolling until 1991. And basically the first big TAD issue was Atlantic Station. If you've been to Atlanta, that was really the first bill. The law was amended in the early 90s and basically loosened up some of the strings that up till then it hadn't been used very much. If you look around the country, only one state, Arizona, does not have a form of this, which is called tax increment financing. Whatever reason in Georgia, we call it TAD. It's basically tax increment financing. That's what it's known as around the country. And every other state but Arizona has some form of that. It is the most widely used redevelopment financing tool in the country. There have been over 10,000 deals done around the country since the really late 70s. It started actually in Massachusetts and has been expanding around the country. In Georgia, we got about $600 million in TAD bonds that have been issued. And as I said, the majority of what's going on now there aren't bonds issued. It's a pay-as-you-go approach like we're talking about here for Kingsland. And what we've seen is everybody thinks about TADs as kind of the bell cow of TADs is Atlantic Station in Atlanta is kind of the biggest one of all. It's the biggest project, but it's not really typical. What's much more typical are smaller projects, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million. And we see those all over the state, small towns, counties, literally TAD is all over the state of Georgia. Right now, about 80 counties and cities have authorized TAD. So they have, by referendum, they have the right to use this technique. Okay, where are we in this process? And the state, when they set up the redevelopment powers law in '85, created a very deliberative process that local governments have to go through. They didn't want this to be, a developer shows up on Friday and they want to get this done by Monday and you got to rush through and do it. They made it a kind of laborious process because they wanted everybody to think it through and make sure they were on board with what was going to happen. So if you look at our agenda here, we've basically gone through, we had the referendum, we basically came up with a redevelopment plan, had the boundaries defined, and the city of Kingsland has approved the plan, which basically puts the TAD in effect. And where we are now is negotiating here with you at the county and the schools to get what's called concurrence, which is basically just means you adopt the redevelopment plan and participate with the city in the creation of the TAD. That's kind of the end of TAD 101. Let's talk about the specifics here of what we're proposing. If you look at the map on the board here, that's in the yellow line is basically the boundary of that's proposed for TAD number 2. It's everything inside those yellow lines, and it's basically along King Avenue, and then Camden Woods is the north-south road that you see connecting through there, and it connects up to Laurel Island Parkway on the north. And those large parcels basically define the boundary of the area. If you look at it today, it has a taxable value of about $5.5 million. So if you take all the existing properties in that area, and the reason that's important is the state says that any jurisdiction that creates TADs can't have more than 10% of its digest in all. You can have as many TADs as they want, but you can't have more collectively than 10% of your digest in TAD. So this is going to represent roughly about 1% of Kingsland's digest, this TAD and the previous one. So it's well below the 10% threshold, which is one of the key things we have to look at. The current boundary, it's got 112 parcels in it, and it has about 584 acres, most of which is undeveloped. There are a few developed small parcels in there, but a lot of it's potential land for future development in those areas. On this map, you can see it marked out. Sawyer Development has proposed 4 areas of development within that larger area. Now, one of the things that sometimes confuses people about TAD, you create this boundary, it doesn't mean that every property in the boundary is going to change. Usually less than half changes over time, but you don't always know exactly which corner is going to change. So you include the boundary parcels, and then, you see what happens after about a 10-year period. In this case, this is what we call a developer-sponsored TAD. We have a much better idea of what's going to happen because Sawyer Development has basically got a plan of what they want to do, and they have identified 4 project areas. The number 1 on the south is kind of the big area, which is Camden Commons, and that would be the primary area where we would see a lot of commercial development, about 450,000 feet of commercial and 500 residential units. The second area, as you go up Camden Woods, we just labeled Camden Woods Northwest. That would be a smaller commercial area, but also have some residential. And then on the other side, 3 is Camden Woods Northeast. That would again be all commercial. And then the smaller parcel, number 4 to the south, would also be a commercial development. When we're all done, when the development is completed, I apologize for how small the type is here, but if you look in the lower right corner, basically, we're assuming, the developers are assuming it's going to take about 8 years to build out this project. So it's a big project. It's got a lot of components. It's not going to happen in the first year. It's going to take a while to absorb all that. But at the end of an 8-year period, you would have roughly a little over 1 million square feet of commercial development, and you'd have a total of 830 attached or multifamily units in that development at the end of the period. An even worse slide to read, but I'll just give you the bottom line is, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, that development getting built out over time, we estimate will add about $77 million of value to the district. So if you think about it today, it's about $5 million, and we're going to add $77 million.
Strictly digest value.
Yes, that's going to be the digest taxable value of that development. So way more than a 10-fold increase over that 8-year period. So whatever you're getting as taxes, you're going to get more than a 10-fold increase in those values at the end of the period. That's, I would say this is
the end of that 77 million. That's at the end of what period?
year 8. It would take 8 years to get there.
But this is a 10-year TAD, so.
Yeah, it's probably going to be, most of the development is done by the 8th year. We're showing the full 10 years because.
But the TAD continues on for 10 years.
That's correct. That's the current plan.
So there won't be any there won't be any revenue stream to Kingsland or anybody's county or until after that 10-year period?
That's what's interesting. In this pay-as-you-go, based on our forecast, it looks like they would be paid back by the seventh year.
Okay.
And so at that point, since you don't have any other projects, you could take that increment and parcel it back out to the three governments because you don't have anybody else to pay
Have
after.
to go away.
Yep, the TAD could either be dissolved and take the money, or for the last 2 years, you just parcel it out to the three governments based on how much
Yeah.
was generated.
You say after 7 years, it gets paid back. Who's paying back? I know who's paying it back.
Right.
To whom is it being paid?
Sawyer and Associates.
Okay, but
So they're going to go borrow money to pay for the infrastructure.
so is it tied to what Sawyer Associates says it is? Or is there a note agreement that is actually getting paid off?
You're going to have a development agreement with Sawyer saying we're requesting $9.5 million. We're requesting that you rebate us each year the incremental value in that fund. And it looks to us like by the seventh year, we will have paid back the full 9.5. You will have sent 9.5
So you
back
think
to
the
Sawyer.
development's gonna generate the taxes to pay it back?
That's correct.
9 years, 7 years, whatever it is.
Right.
And so that's all contingent upon the money's coming,
If they don't build it, there won't be any increment. They don't get
Okay.
paid. You don't pay them unless the increment occurs. So that's really the advantage of TAD. You're not borrowing money. You're not going out and putting yourself in debt. They have to build the project. When they build the project, they create the increment. You then rebate the increment. If they don't build it, whatever happens, we don't do it. You don't owe them any money. So, and the reason we have 10 years is if there's a big recession somewhere in here and we lose a year, we've got a cushion year or so in there to get those dollars. Does that make sense?
so far.
Great. All right, if we look at the next slide, this is our estimate of how much property tax, if with all that development occurs in 8 years, like we talked about, based on the digest that would create, the incremental digest. We estimate that over a 10-year period, it would throw off as much as $17 million in property tax to the city, the county, and the school board. If you look at that plan, we're looking for 9.5 million. That's the amount of money that we need to pay back the money that Sawyer is borrowing. And it looks like, let's see, by
7.5 years.
yeah, about 7.5 to 8 years, somewhere in that window, we're going to have all those dollars. So at that point, you have two choices. The three governments can come together and dissolve the TAD and say, we've done what we're supposed to do. Or you can let it go another couple of years, and when the money comes in, you just distribute it back to the three governments till the TAD ends. You can do it either way. Is it?
Question,
Yes, sir.
at the end of that, just say at 7 years, 6 months, magically the tax revenues rolled in, we have collected and remitted the 9.5 million, whatever it is,
Yes, sir.
and you say the three governments get together.
Right.
Does it take all three to get together to get an agreement on, well, what?
Yeah, the three groups could get together and say, we're done. Do we want to just pull the plug and roll it up the end of the year?
Kingsland says, we're done, we want out now, we want to start taking our money.
Well, either way, you get the money. So again, you have two choices. You can let the TAD go out through the last 3 years, but when the money hits the bank account in November, you just parcel it out to the three governments based on what each one raised. And you do that for the last 3 years.
But the
Or the group there's no incentive for the city to continue it because
Okay.
they want to get it over like you
I
would to get the money.
Because I know they're not gonna want to end it until it's paid for, I get it.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
But my point is, no one entity, once it's paid for, can just stop it. You said you got two options.
You have to get all three.
Taking the money, then at year 10 it's done, you look and say, oh, we've got 8 million over, so then you distribute the 8 million out to the three entities based
Right.
on how it should have been under normal procedures.
Right.
My point is, what does it take, who has to agree for that period to continue, to just build it?
Beyond 10, you mean beyond 10 years?
Beyond the 7.5 years when it got
Oh,
paid.
Kingsland would have to initiate that because it's their TAD. They basically, under the law, it's Kingsland operates the TAD. So what would typically happen is, say you're paid out 7 to 7, and halfway through the seventh year, Kingsland would call you and the school board together and say, let's wrap it up. We're not going to do any more financing. We said this is a one-shot deal. And on January, at the end of this year, we'll close the TAD out. We'll distribute what's already in the pot. And then from this point forward, you just get the increased millage.
So,
That's a simple way to do it.
all right, I mean, I understand that, but I'm talking about realistically, what else can happen? You say historically or typically,
Right.
it's the Kingsland's TAD, so they would initiate it.
Yes, because it's there.
What if they don't initiate it?
You go to them and say, hey, why are we doing
Says,
this?
hey, or we say, hey,
Right.
it's paid out. We want to stop this damn thing. We don't want to build up a savings account and be distributed
Sure.
again, or to allow this to accumulate. So
You could make that a contingency of your agreement. With
that
the
anyone member after it's been, I realize when you signed the contract, it
Right.
would be worth a hoot if everybody didn't stay in until it got paid back, at least for
Right.
the 10-year period. But assuming it gets paid out in 7.5 years, any one of those entities can say, okay, we're not going to just keep accumulating, we're going to start now distributing it.
Yeah, and what we typically see is as soon as it's paid off, even if they stay till let's say there's 3 years left and they stay, or 2 years left, they pay it out each year. They don't wait till the end to pay it out. They said, we're already paid off. Here's your share of the 8th year. Then 9th year comes. Here's your share of the 9th year. Here's your share of the 10th year. They don't wait till the end to pay it out because it's over. The project's basically done. The easiest thing is just close it down. You just
Well,
close
I'm
it down.
just trying to be somewhat of the devil's advocate. The school board says, no, we don't want to collect our money yet. We want to just let it accumulate. And the cities in the county, well, I know that's not realistic.
Yeah, we've never had that happen.
Well,
Everybody wants to get their money.
Well, there's a lot of things happen here. I just want to see how it can go.
Yeah,
In that scenario, the city and the county says, no, heck no, we want to end this thing. But you could have it in agreement for one party to that TAD, once it's been paid back, and say, we're out, send us our money. You two want to keep contributing to it? Fine. We want ours now.
right. Once it's paid off,
Once it's paid off. So
Right.
that can be
yeah,
part of it.
you make that a contingency. Sure.
You would have absolutely no pushback from the city of Kingston. That was our first question too, is how quickly could we pay this off? And, that.
I didn't hear the first part.
All the council members feel strongly that as soon as it's paid off, they want to dissolve this budget. So you won't have any pushback whatsoever with that being a contingency.
Oh, I don't, there's no reason for Kingsland or anybody else.
But there's.
But, there's, like I said, I'm being the jackass in the barn, so.
Is there any restriction on that money as far as where it can be spent?
Yes,
It's got
there'll
to
be a
spent
development
in-
agreement. There'll be a development agreement between the developer and the city, which spells out the amount they receive, how they receive it, and what it has to be spent on. And they have to then certify that expenditures back to the city. If $1.5 million was for this particular road, they got to have the engineer report saying, here's where the $1.5 million went.
So is the engineer reporting, is that how it's done? Certification?
They have to, when they draw their money down, they have to certify they've spent it on those authorized purposes.
So,
That's correct.
my point is the engineer does certification.
Yeah, they could be their, sometimes they have a third party do it. A lot of times they just accept their engineering firm sends a report in saying, here's what we spent the dollars on for this part of the project. And the city reviews that and then will accept that or not accept it. I mean, usually they accept it.
Well, something that the county and the city of Kingsland ought to think about is maybe increasing the size of the TAD area to include the county park area. That way we could use some of those TAD funds to finish out that walkway coming from Howard Peoples Park, possibly add another park if the covenant allows us on that eastern part of that parcel as well.
You thought that all by yourself?
Yeah, I have a lot of free time at work. So,
All right.
You'd be in the beer industry. No, I had not considered that. That would be a good means. That's just something for I say something for the county. Figured out?
Yes, sir.
Good, I couldn't. That would be something, just like being said, it's a county park.
right?
this is something that we had on the kind of on the books for a while. Now, that would be something where the developer would have to, it'd have to be some cost estimates are done, and then say, okay, this much money, he would have to, whatever.
We can do that. The biggest challenge we have at this point is we have to amend the boundary that's been approved. We can do that. It's not a big deal. We just have to add that. You can't spend TAD money outside the boundary. That's one of the hard and fast
Well,
rules.
that's what he
So,
was talking about.
so if we want to include the park, and that's totally your call and the city's call, we just need to go back and amend the plan to make sure that parcel's in
Well,
there.
let's just say that the park happens to be in Kingsland, so I don't know that they would be adamantly opposed to it. I mean, it's a reasonable thought. I mean, I know the time's of the essence, but, in all these things, you say it's not a big deal. Well, in my world, everything's a big deal, but, we'd have to go back and amend the boundaries, and you gotta take.
It could be, but it'd be like a one sentence amendment. So it's not a big deal. I mean, let's, I don't know what it is. Let's say it's parcels A, B, and C.
Timeframe of an amendment like that.
I'm sorry?
It'd be just a matter of when they got to their next meeting, and
Correct.
we approved it, da.
Yep.
And of course, it would take some time to put together the cost that we would looking to be spending on it and increase the TAD amount to cover that. Am I oversimplifying it?
Probably the easiest way to do it would be amend the boundary so it's included.
Right?
And then as you get your increment back, use that money and use that increment to make those improvements. That would probably be the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, those improvements don't need to be made right now. They could be made after the 7 years.
So you're saying after the 7.5 years or whatever gets paid,
It's in an eligible area. Otherwise, we've got to also amend the amount we're requesting, and we got to amend the plan
that's what I'm
to
saying.
include. It gets way more complicated to, I don't know what the number is, but let's say it's $1 million or whatever the number is.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we'd have to go back and refresh the plan to have all that included.
So with that being said,
Boundary's
Say-
easier.
what, in order to earmark that money coming in, if it's 7.5 years is paid off, if it's 7.5 years is paid off, then the money's supposed to be redistributed to the three entities involved. And then the county starts collecting the revenue, then it just becomes part of the regular general fund and it's done that way.
Yep.
I think Ben was
But
kind
it's
of.
got to be spent in that area.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have to then. That'd be over.
No, it had.
So at that point, it's general revenue back to you.
Money, then it's.
You could just say the
Sure.
8th year increment that we're going to get back, I don't know what the number is, but say it's $1 million. That amount we're going to put into that park. And that's something, right,
Huh?
And there would be a reason to extend it.
right.
But, okay, well, but
Right.
that could be determined at that point in time.
You might have other
Good
priorities.
idea, but the logistics of doing all that at this point,
Well, you still got to increase the area if you want to include.
Well, no, if you waited till the TAD ended, then you just
Oh.
take the revenue. You're in the
Okay.
county, it's your property. You can go spend it where you want to spend it.
yeah,
Okay.
doesn't matter then.
Doesn't matter. You could just make it say, this is one of our priorities once we,
It would only matter
once
if
it
you were
passed.
trying to do it while the TAD was active.
right, then we'd have to amend.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Hold on,
I'm sorry, did I miss somebody?
go ahead.
Okay. The other thing that, obviously the benefits of the county about the TAD is the TAD only focuses on property tax. And so, if Sawyer Development's able to build all they're proposing over the 8 years, it's got the potential to generate a lot of additional lost and splost sales tax that the county will receive all through that period. It doesn't get pledged to the TAD. It's not part of the TAD discussion. We estimated that over 10 years, there could be an additional 17 million in county revenues from splost and lost. And that if you look at it from a timing point of view, by the end of year 8, you could have gotten $11 million in sales tax, which more than offsets the 9.5 million of total TAD proceeds that are going to go to the project. So you're kind of trading off future property tax to get a big bump at the end, but in the interim, you're getting all the SPOS revenue as it occurs. So given how large the commercial component of this project is, it would have a significant impact on your SPOS collections. So if you look at this, kind of what are the benefits to the county, we think there's several of them. One is you're going to collect the money that you currently collect from the property. So that 5.5 million, you're going to get the 78,000 every year for those years that will occur. Second is you're going to see improvements to Camden Woods, which are going to make that road a much better, much more accessible roadway through that area, connecting those two major roadways, as well as additional utility improvements that'll get done as part of the project. Third point is it's really going to impact a very small percent of your existing digests. It's less than 1%. So it's not like you're locking up a big percentage of digest here in terms of the increment. And we think it can generate significant splost and lost revenue to the county all during the TAD period. At the end of the TAD period, so at the 8th year or whenever we roll it up, the county will be receiving 1.1 million in property taxes from the new development instead of the 78,000 you get now. So you make all the splost and lost money, and then when the TAD rolls off, you basically more than tenfold your collections from property tax. So we think for all those reasons, this is a good project for the county, and we would urge you to participate with the city of Kingsland. With that, I'll open it up to any questions you have.
That 1.1 million, that's cash coming.
What they're saying, that would be the county's portion.
In the 8th year.
That ended after, in the 8-year period.
I understand that, but is that a digest increase on the property or is that actual current?
That's property tax.
That would be a digest increase in the period of related property tax revenue coming off of it.
Yeah, your digest would probably go up about 70 million.
What about the cost to provide services? I mean, you're talking about increased digest, but, along with all this development comes cost to provide service. So what, how's that factored in?
Well, I'm sorry. So,
Impact.
Yes.
Impact on services, not just water, sewer, and roads. You've got public safety, fire, which includes fire, ambulance, sheriff's office.
Elections, voting.
a couple things. One is they're focused, the
PSA.
Sure, you got all your other operating costs that the county has. Two things. One is you're getting $11 million in lost and splost money to offset some of those costs as you go through that time period. Second of it is you're using the money to make public improvements that are going to be long-term benefit to the city and county. And then at the end of the period, you're more than 10 times the revenue that you're going to generate. So you're making that investment for that 7-8 year period to basically turbocharge the return that you're going to get afterwards.
So mentioning those improvements, does this specifically get into the details of what those improvements are and where they are?
Yeah, and that would be laid out specifically in the development agreement. So you would be able to see what's been pledged. And whether the developers want to talk about that in more detail, I'd be glad to let them do that. But yeah, they have a plan of what those elements are.
Now we've kind of been discussing into the weeds, but getting back a little bit more to the fundamentals of how this works.
Yes.
Explain how a TAD works on residential development, because, with my research, TAD was intended as a redevelopment power and not a development power. So kind of explain how that works.
Yeah, there's basically, the state law says that if you want to enact a TAD, you have three basic reasons or rationales that you can create a TAD. One is slums and blight. Basically, you have an area that's just totally bombed out and you got to go in and start from scratch and redo that. The most common is what's called a redevelopment area. And a redevelopment area is there may be some development that's gone on in the area, but it's lagging other parts of the city. We're not seeing as much activity in that area. And so if you look at the city as a whole, this area is not doing as well. Okay, it's not a slum and blight, but it's basically, it was invested in 30 years ago and nobody's reinvesting. So you're trying to attract reinvestment in the area. The third strategy is an area is not developing because it lacks sufficient infrastructure. And it specifically calls out transportation and sewer and water as that infrastructure. So if I was able to put an interchange in, if I was able to put a connecting roadway in, I can open this area to development. That's an allowable purpose under TAD. And I would say today, maybe about a third of the projects are based on that rationale. A lot of them, probably the majority, are still what you would kind of call traditional redevelopment projects. But, this definitely meets the test in terms of what the state law requires.
Right. And
Now, in terms of residential, we excluded a lot of the residential areas. We didn't include a lot of residential because two things. One, if the area is already developed, it's not going to change. There's really no point putting it in there. And typically you focus more on commercial activities, and the bulk of this project is a commercial project, though it does have, I think it's 830 residential units included. But if you look at it, I mean, from the dollars, that only represents about 20% of the total digest growth. The commercial's about 75%. So it's definitely a commercial oriented project.
so I guess, out of the 880 units that are residential, how would they be able to, forgive their, not forgive, but, the property tax be frozen? I mean, are those rentals or because I don't see how they could be sold and then the property tax is not.
Well, in the plan that we have now, the residential and the commercial, when they get developed, their increment would go into the pot and be part of that $17 million that's going to get.
The property owners are not gonna be affected. The freeze does not affect.
They just pay their property tax.
Okay, I see.
Whatever
So they pay the tax.
whatever the millage rate, whatever the
Right.
values, whatever it is.
They don't even know they're in a tax.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Okay, that money comes in. and it
That
goes
money
up there.
comes in, it only gets, once it gets in, it's, the dollar amounts, as he stated, is frozen. It just doesn't go to
To
the
state,
county,
yeah,
to the
yeah.
city, and to the school board. It goes back to service to debt. Is
Right.
that
The current money you collect goes back to the three governments, but any growth that you get goes into a
Right.
fund, and that fund is what you use to
That's what we're
retire.
talking about. It doesn't, it's not gonna change what they would have.
They won't, if you were the owner of the apartment project, you pay
Never
exactly
know.
the same millage you would have paid whether you're in the TAD or not in the TAD. The only thing happens different is when the commissioner gets the check, they allocate it to, if it was existing value or it's incremental, it goes into a fund.
Yep.
But you as the property owner, it's invisible to you. You don't see any difference in terms of what happens.
I don't see anybody here from the tax commissioner's office. Anybody here from the assessors? Okay. Is anybody from the tax assessors or tax commissioner's office? The reason I was asking is, it's gonna have to be identified so that when it goes over,
Yes, sir.
it's known split. I just wanted to see what kind of complications were involved.
Basically, I'm sorry I did that. Can you get it going again? Okay. Okay, we send a list by December 20th of this year. These 2 pages list all the properties that are going to be in the TAD, the 112 properties. The tax commissioner certifies the value as of December, the end of December of the year that TAD's formed, so the end, this December. A letter goes to the Department of Revenue and said, this is now the base amount of TAD number 2 in Kingsland. And then that becomes the number that you work from going forward. And so it's called certifying the base. It's something they do at the Department of Revenue.
I guess one other thing I just wanted to know is, as it relates to the assessor's office and the commissioner's, or the tax commissioner's office, is there some sort of tremendous, we don't want to get there and say, well, my God, we got to have a $50,000 system to.
Right.
I just.
Basically, they bird dog each of these parcels on their system.
I understand that
They
part of it.
collect the revenue, they pay out the existing amount and send the rest to the city. It's pretty
That's
simple.
like when in fact, in theory, it sounds real simple.
Yeah,
Oftentimes though, in the implication, there's a little more to it. I just wanted to see if, I wanted to get their reaction as to
sure.
administering this. Is there some great additional cost to the county or what's involved in it? Is it like, no, our system may well do it.
Should. I mean, that's been our
I'm
experience.
sure it does.
Once they set it up, they got to set up, the only time is really the front end where they set it up, and then it kind of goes on autopilot each year. And they just pull that in. They set it up like a separate account, and they just get to see what's in that account each.
Is that the end of your presentation?
Yes, sir.
You guys have any other questions? Any of them?
Thank you.
No. Thank you, Ken. All right, Mr. Winkle,
Thank you.
3 minutes. I know how you like to pontificate. And we coming up on a park board meeting.
Point of order.
There is no point of order, just go make
It
your
is a
point.
point of order. You insulted me.
Coming from you, that's almost laughable, buddy. Do you want to get up and make your point or you want to quit? I'm flexible. Don't approach me and don't come any closer.
You're gonna treat me with the same respect you treat any.
I'm gonna treat you with the respect that you deserve. Now, do you want to get up there and make your point and ask your question, or do you want to quit?
You allowed him to speak for 38.5 minutes,
He's doing the presentation.
and I'm giving 3 minutes.
You going, you've got 2.5 now, so good.
Good, thanks. Public really appreciates that from a lame duck.
There you go.
Got it. Okay, so the slide that was put up there said 830 rental apartments. He slid right around your direct question about what happens to the property owners who buy the property. Well, the apartments are the one that own the property, not the individual residents in there. Where are the people's jobs who are going to occupy 830 apartments, number one? Because they will end up being built first. The retail, almost 1 million square feet, is equal to 6 Walmarts or 17 stores. And we have all those vacancies that are sitting in St. Mary's that are not renting. And the Belk store, as an example, would probably go bankrupt or leave. I don't even know that they're paying rent. And then you're talking about including in the TAD, two different TAD perimeters up there were shown. And the presentation was marked draft, not final. And the 2 different perimeters included a development that's already underway, approved, did not need the TAD, and the homes that are in there, the duplex homes, are selling for $300,000 each. And they've sold about 20 or 30 of them already. And they're being included in the TAD, and the taxpayers, according to the presentation, are going to benefit as if those properties for the next 8 years are valued at $20,000 each. Because they're included, including the commercial properties if they go up in valuation. And if they don't, they're still in the TAD. And that all goes to the benefit of building the rest of it. And so what you saw up there was the ideal plan by a developer. They have something that they want from you. You asked a really good question about what are the collateral costs. The collateral costs are not to y'all. The collateral cost to EMS is to the other taxpayers in the county who contribute to the taxes. It goes on our shoulders to underwrite this development, to take the risk that are associated on the front end. The schools don't get any extra money until the $9.5 million is paid off, or whatever the amount is that the schools get. It costs them $2,400 a year out of county taxes to support each student in our public schools. How many students are in those 830 apartments? I don't see a number for that. And so I see that this is a burden on taxpayers, and all y'all do is redistribute that to the taxpayers.
All right, Mr. Winkle, your time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ron? You're a party to the party? So you are a party to the party?
My name is Ronald Sawyer with Sawyer and Associates. I appreciate your time. This project started years ago when I bought the 128 acres, and we had a plan to develop it because you couldn't get access across from Walgreens. City, the DOT weren't willing to do that, nor was the railroad. As we were moving through what we're going to do, they decided could get access through there. And as I was putting it together, and we can still develop it the other way. I don't want any misconceptions of, I keep hearing people what they're doing for the developers. Not a lot going on here for the developer. I'm putting up my property to borrow the money to put in the roads, water and sewer for this to make it all better. Now, do we get somebody? Sure we do. We get a timeline that we can work with and start telling people we haven't got to wait until the different folks can afford to put the road in. We'll put it in now. And we've had people in my business complain all the time, but we don't have enough retail here. And I know it's a lot to make happen, but if we build a place that's conducive for those folks, for the big box people, we believe we can get them. We've talked enough. We think we can get something, all of them. What's the timeline? What's all of this? So we've already got some things working on it. We can get some timeline, but Camden County, one of the things we really need here, we need a retail center. You know, we got a lot of little pockets and that's great. But right now, the money we're spending in Glenn County, well, on his deal, I think one of the last years, it shows on that it's generating about 9 million toward the end in sales tax revenue. Well, guys, that's money we're taking to Florida and Glenn County now. You know, we starting back in school, my family was down there shopping in Jacksonville for school clothes and stuff, and we ought to be doing it here. And that's what I like to see, but we can certainly develop the property another way. It just, this is what I think will do all of us more good. If we can put this together, make this happen through here to get this retail in. But we need a place for it, but it's got to have all the infrastructure. It's got to have the roads, the water and sewer. The rest of it's there. So I'd be glad to ask. And there's, in that thing, I don't know what we're talking about, apartments or rental apartments. There'll certainly be something on the back of the retail that supports the retail. The part through Camden Woods are single family homes. And those single family homes are going in there either way. That's something that'll eventually happen. Why it's eventually happen, we can go down either side of that road. We're already approved and put our own road, which we're going to do anyway in their subdivision. Now we'll just have roads that come out, hit the main road, the new road. We'll have a site for the school. That's on that property. And then we'll bring our road through the county's park area, all that. And they ought to have an area. So it just does a lot of good for the whole county. And that's why we're here today. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Ron, I'll tell you what, at this point in time, we're fixing to run up on our regular meeting. So, I'm sure that, do you have any questions y'all want for Ron that, you know, so we take a quickie for?
Not this time.
Just a quick one. You mentioned about the Board of Education having a piece of property there along that road. That's the plan in the near future? There'd be another school there?
I suppose so. They have the piece there. It's 20, well, it's not, you know, there's a 20-acre piece.
Originally, it was their plan. They bought the property, you know, back in the early 2000s when we were going to swell up to 200,000 people overnight. They bought it and the population hadn't justified, but over time, you know, they were going to sell it, they're going to keep it. And obviously, you know, that would be a logical place to have one, you know, when the.
And plus in that same area, there's a place where they're putting in a water tower that'll pick up the water pressure, can kind of, it'll help the water pressure in the whole area.
All right, well, let's stop this. We can certainly talk some other time. But we're gonna kind of get ready for the board meeting, so appreciate it. We'll, see you at 6. Welcome to the County Board of Commissioners Tuesday, November 1st, regular meeting. Let's start the meeting with an invocation by Commissioner Clark, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Fire here. Dear Heavenly Father, we just love you and praise you and thank you for everything you've done for us. Lord, we pray you be with our military, first responders, Lord, and the people of Camden County. Lord, we just thank you for everything you've done for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody turn their phones to mute and watches and whatnot. That would be great. Roll call, Ms. Bishop.
Commissioner Brand is absent.
Yeah, just to let you know, Commissioner Brandt's absent because his wife was having a heart procedure up in Brunswick, a little unexpected, expected to be fine. But, otherwise, as you well know, he'd be here. Just thought I'd let you know that. At this point, do we have any agenda amendments?
No, sir.
Huh?
No, sir.
All right, could I get a motion on the adoption of the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries. All right, we got before you the meetings of the October 18th regular meeting and public hearing. Are there any corrections, additions, changes?
Motion to
not-
approve.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries. At this point, we got the, some presentation. Who is Chica? Okay. You're on.
Good evening,
You got
Commissioner.
some of my artwork up there,
Did you do it now?
maybe.
I'm here tonight to announce the winners of the 2022 Showcase Camden County Photo Contest. And we had 70 pictures in total submitted by 24 contestants.
Really?
So it was a large number this time. And I would like to go ahead and let you guys know who our winners were. We selected winners from 4 categories: nature, wildlife, landscapes, transportation, and sunrise sunset. And we also chose an overall winner. So for our first category, nature and wildlife category, the winner is Ashley Rice, Dragonfly.
She here?
Come on up.
Come on up.
Okay. For our landscapes category, the winner is Chandler White. For our transportation category, our winner is Ashley Armstrong. And for our sunrise sunset category, the winner is Francis Lewis. And our overall winner, thank you for the drum roll, is Ashley Armstrong.
I'll get them to hold their pictures in front of them.
Yes, we will get the, go ahead and get, you can grab your pictures. Or I'll.
We'll come stand behind y'all.
You can come up.
Got a coat on that. It feels pretty, so it wants to do. It'll take you long to figure it out.
Thank you all for your participation and everyone else. And I'm going to give you your certificates. Thank you.
I think we have another proclamation. Are you reading that, Ms.
Yes,
Katie?
I will. Tonight we have a proclamation to recognize November 6, 2022 as Retired Educators Day. Whereas more than 141,000 retired educators have devoted their time and talents to public education in our state, fostering the academic development of millions of outstanding citizens in the state of Georgia. And whereas retired educators touched and influenced the lives of generations of young people, motivating and inspiring their students to use their innate talents and abilities to the fullest, prompting them to become responsible, contributing citizens. And whereas retired educators possess valuable knowledge and are able to use their vast experience and skill to enrich the education process in various varied settings, often continuing to be a major source of insight and direction in the education for our state and nation. And whereas on Retired Educators Day, the Camden County Board of Commissioners recognizes these individuals for their time and commitment to bettering our country and encourages Georgians to express their gratitude for the work done by the retired educators. We now therefore proclaim Sunday, November 6th as Retired Educators Day and encourage all our citizens to recognize these individuals for their time and commitment to bettering our community and encourage all citizens to express their gratitude for the work done by retired educators. And I believe we have someone here to come up to accept the proclamation.
You old enough to be retired? All right. This brings us to our first public comment section for items that are on the agenda. And there will be a 3-minute limit. So, do we have anyone registered? Okay,
First is Miss Jackie Icorn.
okay.
I'm here to speak on the special use permit, and I'm addressing this to the commissioners. What's Camden County? When legal contracts are signed and promises are made, Camden County is you 5 commissioners. When the consequences of your actions are paid for financially and environmentally, Camden County isn't you 5, but all of us taxpayers and every citizen of Camden County. You 5 have forced citizens into a 7-year, $11 million snipe hunt with the spaceport and still won't admit you've left us, not you, holding the bag. If you just held the sack open over the ditch, all your high-priced consultants told you, they'd herd jobs into it. Limited liability companies spring up and disappear around David Cole like mushrooms. What happened to Organic Code Development, LLC, and the Camden MOU from 2022? This is a press release that was issued on April the 28th, 2020. And at that time, David Cole was here to represent Organic Code Development, LLC. And As a next step, Camden County and Organic Code Development LLC will enter into a memorandum of understanding to outline the parameters of public-private partnership and finalize the due diligence necessary to complete the transaction. The press release is filled with declarative statements. It will do this, and those things have not been done. And now you're eager to enter a snipe hunt with Mr. Cole and the hidden investors of another of his spontaneous LLCs, Organic Capital Fund, which is tied to the Bear property. In his September 9, 2022 letter to you, Mr. Cole stated, zoning special land use approval will pre-qualify the property for high-tech firms considering relocation to Camden. Mr. Cole provided you no concrete information that would let you grant approval to anything at all, much less pre-qualify anything. Cole and his high-risk speculators aren't going to produce anything themselves and aren't currently able to guarantee project approval to the prospective high-tech businesses they're courting that presumably might do something. But Organic Capital wants Camden County to provide assurances and backstop this third-party risk with Camden County pre-qualification permits. What about contract law, detrimental reliance claims, county non-performance on Organic Capital's pre-qualification permits because of presently unevaluated environmental hazards when or if one of those firms Cole recruited experiences financial losses after relying on Camden County's pre-qualifications? More lawsuits for us taxpayers? Organic Capital should get from Camden County the same assurance of speculative financial success that was clearly implied in the $1, or was it $10 price Bear charged them for the problematic land. Buyer beware. Don't prematurely entangle us in David Cole's and Organic Capital's scattershot speculation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Ricky Manning.
Ricky Manning from Bullhead. We'll speak on the same subject. I don't know where to begin, there's so much, but anyway, I'll try to keep it short. Let's start with, how about the United report that mentions 2 anonymous former workers helped them with this whole sampling and carrying on out there looking at the Bear property. Who's these anonymous sources? Do y'all know? I'm here in front of you live. I'm not hiding. I can tell you what's out there. I know what's out there. I know what testing's been done. Has anybody read the almost 1,000-page brownfield submittal? Probably not. I have. So, anyways, you're going to dispute, you're going to buy anonymous sources here? This ain't Washington. So you're going to try to approve these special use permits from a guy that you don't even, he's got no facts, no proof of nothing. Now, let's move on. How about the pollution out there? They say in the report, they've been utilizing, putting all their contaminated stuff in the Carbide landfill. Carbide landfill's been closed since when? Let me see here, 1996. From the EPA site. Let me see, 156,918 pounds since the landfill's been closed. Where are they at? They're not in the report. So where are the almost 160,000 pounds of contaminants? Are they in that 4.2 little acre site? They out there somewhere. That's why the arsenic levels jumped up 90,000 times above permissible levels when you did your seismic testing. It's out there. So let's see what else they're going to hide out there. Well, that explained that. So where's that Alicar? Nobody knows. There's a bunch more stuff. What happened to all the ground soil tests? They were in the report for the brownfield. They disappeared. All soil tests are gone now. Where they at? Why'd they hide them? I can tell you why they hid them. Because they're detrimental to the brownfield. Detrimental. So they hid them for nobody to see. Y'all don't ask these questions? Do you expect our little Camden Planning and Development Committee to dig all this up? You got a handful of people trying to do a lot of stuff. They don't dig up any information. So how are they going to give you any kind of information for you to make a judgment on? Somebody's got to dig it up. These permits and use permits are going to be the death of this county. When he brings some factual stuff, puts them before you where you got something to look at, I can understand. Let's try to get something out there. I'm not against that. Nobody in this room is against that, as long as it's done safely, correctly, and it's not costing. He's up here trying to get these permits, and I'm gonna tell you what he's getting for, so he can go get some funding. Where's that funding gonna come from? Taxes. Eventually, when a good business wants to come to Camden and use some of these grants and funding, they're gonna look at you and say, whoa, wait a minute. We done give you all kind of funding over here to organic. And you done nothing with it. So.
You got your time up there, Mr. Manning. Thank you.
Well, you got the time to use it wisely.
Thank you, sir. Is anyone else registered?
Mr. Steve Winkle.
Steve Winkle. Spaceport Camden has attracted all sorts of bad ideas and questionable consultants. First, you hired Andrew Nelson, who has never built a spaceport, in order to help you get your license. His failed space plane company cost Midland, Texas, $10 million or more, and the suckers who bought X-Corps tickets on his never-built space plane lost their money too. But you hired him, and Camden taxpayers have paid him well over $1 million, and what we got was a useless $12 million license. Nelson and Spaceport Greenhorn Steve Howard oversaw the millions more taxpayers paid pursuing large rockets like the SpaceX Falcon 9. That's despite the FAA emails in 2017 saying that large class rockets were a no-go and that even small class rockets were questionable. Then after the FAA said, think smaller, in 2019 you hired Gregory Amirati, a former failed salesman for Vector Space and the now struggling Astra. Today, their stock opened at 62 cents a share. You started paying Amirati $5,500 a month for whatever, in fact, whatever, which suddenly ballooned to a total of over $500,000 with no apparent accomplishments. That's a nice gig if you can get it, and you certainly can if you're trying to do something with Spaceport Camden. In fact, your so-called experts who had been betting on smaller rockets were wrong too. Most of those wannabe small rocket companies took investors' money and never launched anything. Those who launched, like Rocket Lab, are still losing money after 30 launches.
Mr. Winkle,
Yes.
I don't see anything on the agenda about Spaceport Camden, so.
Oh, I do. The application, it clearly is to support the spaceport operations. Rocket launch facility, that's item number 6. Read it. Read his 17-page letter. Cover letter.
But you're talking about Spaceport Camden.
No, I'm talking about first of all, is this my time or did you stop the clock?
You got your time. Go ahead. So what we gonna say?
We'd like to see the memorandum of understanding. We'd like to know why Camden County passed on purchasing the Bear property for $1. We'd like to know why Camden County's Joint Development Authority is not in charge of this project rather than a private developer. The private developer who apparently has secret resources, and secret partners. In fact, those secret partners may be people making decisions about the operations. We don't know. Normally, the funding, and he's indicating that this funding will come from the ARPA funds for some of the development. It's in his letter. You're withholding from spending in Camden County more than $3 million worth of ARPA funds. And he looks like he's trying to attach some of those ARPA funds, because those ARPA funds have to come from a county government or a city government. And you did not spend all of your ARPA funds. And so when I take a look at this thing doesn't look like it's a plan. It looks like it's a whole lot of speculation. And so what I'm talking about is the speculators who have come in here that have asked for your approvals, like memorandums of understanding, which have produced not a single job in Camden County, and have cost Camden County at least $12 million, and have caused you to sue the taxpayers who tried to stop you from wasting any more of our money. And so this project started as an adjunct to the spaceport, and you signed an MOU with him, which is secret. So how is it that we're supposed to know anything when you keep your secrets? Even the stuff that you get to the court, you ask to be secret, that we can't even see what the court is seeing. So
You exceeded your time. Thank
is that including the time that you interrupted me?
Yeah.
So your interruption counted against me?
Nope.
Oh, thank you.
You're at 5 minutes now.
Ms. Terry Keller.
Good evening, gentlemen. Good to see you again. What's not secret is the $12 million that's been wasted on the spaceport so far. We know that nowhere else in America can you launch rockets over occupied private property. And that's what would happen if you launch rockets from either of these properties. I was buying furniture on Sunday, and even the salesperson asked me, "What's going on down there? Your politicians aren't listening to you. You voted overwhelmingly not to buy that property, and now they're suing you." So we're known across America as a place where our politicians aren't listening to our people. But you are being asked by Organic Capital, a spanking new secret corporation with unknowable, if any, assets and zero experience in developing high-tech research and technology parks, to help them promote something that just does not exist. Even at the Osceola County, Florida specimen project they use as an example for Camden County. And the federal funding Organic is counting on must filter through a government body like yourselves or the Spaceport Authority. Is that what you have planned for the few million ARPA dollars you set aside? No economic development miracles came out of the $12 million you've wasted on the worthless spaceport license. Not even Steve Howard was able to keep his job here. It is self-evident that Organic Code Capital has no idea how to create those jobs, except for the possibility of a proper solar field. But if the county and JDA thought solar is a good idea, why, after negotiating with Bear for 5 years, didn't you buy the property for $1 or $10 and get state and federal funding for the solar field? You do know there are at least 12 major solar projects being developed right now across Georgia. The credit the county received for the solar power produced could be credited to the new industries that create real jobs anywhere in Camden County. That's real economic incentive. Organic's application is a whack-a-mole of development dreams. For instance, they want a heavy lift cargo helicopter landing pad. Is it to haul the semiconductor freight from the high-tech electronics factories to prevent semi-trucks emissions on Harriet's Bluff Road? I doubt Mr. Cole is expecting to use his heavy lift cargo helicopters to stock an Amazon warehouse out there, or to count gopher tortoises, or deliver submarine parts to Kings Bay. Whack-a-mole. It's obvious organic has no clients chomping at the bit to create jobs on the Bear side. You should tell them to come back when they have a real customer and a real plan that needs a special use permit to create real jobs. The correct course of action tonight is to turn organic down, except for conditional solar development. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else registered, Ms. Bishop? Is there anyone else? All right, moving forward, back into our regular agenda. Mr. Yakabashi.
We need to,
Oh, hold on. You're right. We need to get a motion to adjourn the regular meeting and enter into, oh, hold on, we got to get out of this one. I jumped ahead of myself here.
Make a
Adjourn the regular
motion
meeting and convene a public hearing.
make a motion to adjourn the regular meeting and convene a public hearing.
second,
Got first and second, all those in favor? Motion carries. Now we're in a public hearing.
Thank you,
Now,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Yakabashi.
For the sake of time, if I may, Mr. Chairman, all these special use that will be presented tonight will be located at 5954 Union Carbide Road in Woodbine, instead of me repeating myself each time. The first item on the agenda will be a request for special use approval to allow for electric power generation other than solar and wind. The applicant is asking for the special use for power generation, hydrogen manufacturing, research and development for potential buyers. There was no recommendation from the Planning Commission on this item.
We're gonna let him present all of them, and then we'll just do it that way, if you don't mind, Dave.
The next item would be a request for special use approval to allow for solar and wind electric power generation. This special use is for solar to be used as an energy source in the generation of liquid hydrogen and as a part of research being conducted in alternative fuel sources for potential buyers. The Planning Commission recommends approval with the condition that it be for solar only. The next item will be a request for special use approval to allow for semiconductor and other electronic component manufacturing. This special use is for potential buyers to conduct research and development for semiconductor manufacturing. The Planning Commission recommends approval on this item. The next item will be a special use approval to allow for general aviation airports non-scheduled air transportation. This request is to construct a commercial heliport pad, lighting, hangar, and fuel support for heavy lift cargo helicopters for potential buyers. The Planning Commission recommends denying this special use. The next item will be a special use approval to allow for wireless telecommunication antenna and towers. This applicant is requesting to build a commercial cell tower to provide cell service for the property, intercoastal waterway, and emergency information for a potential buyer. There was a no recommendation from the Planning Commission on this item. The last request is a special use approval to allow for space research and technology. The applicant is requesting to have the ability to do research and development for space exploration on this parcel for a potential buyer. Planning Commission recommends approval for this item.
All right, thank you, Mr. Yakabashi. First of all, we'll let, is anyone wanting to speak in favor of this item? Which I assume that's you. You got 15 minutes.
Commissioners, Mr. Howard, Mr. Morris, and Mr. Yakabashi, thank you for entertaining this. Hoping you can hear me now. First, I'd like to say, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but not everyone is entitled to their own facts. Fact is, we have 6 items that have been requested that have absolutely nothing to do with all the information that was just given. Those 6 items just covered relate directly to a list of 10 criteria that we have to meet to qualify for those items. And again, those items are threshold requests, still subject to us having construction land disturbance, all of the other requirements necessary in development. They're just threshold requests. 10 items that we have that we've got to meet as part of this application to qualify. Will the proposed special use be consistent with the stated purpose of the zoning district in which it is located? We're zoned industrial general. That's heavy industrial. We are zoned. And again, this is private property. We don't have to explain to anybody who our investors are, our partners, or how we operate. All we have to do is make the request and meet the 10 items that are part of this criteria. Item number 2, is the proposed special use compatible with the goals, objectives, purpose, and intent of the comprehensive plan? And again, the comprehensive plan has designed areas designated as industrial general, heavy industrial. That's the comprehensive plan. The items we requested are all in compliance with a heavy industrial property. 3, will the establishment of the special use impede the normal and orderly development of surrounding property for uses predominant in the area? We're in the middle of nowhere. We are at least 8 miles from any other development. More importantly, we have been surrounded by conserved real estate, 27,000 acres that's been put into the conservation program, and also a carbide property that has been effectively abandoned for the last 12 years because of their concerns and issues. So we don't have neighboring properties. So I got to believe that that predominant area, there isn't any impact to it whatsoever. And again, we're describing, this isn't 2 acres in downtown Kingsland. This is 800 acres out on the end of Harriet's Bluff Road, of which has been neglected and gone unnoticed 12 years. Item number 4, is location and character of the proposed special use consistent with a desirable pattern of development for the locality in general? This property is zoned heavy industrial, was operated as a heavy industrial site for Bayer Crop Science. Prior to that, all the way back to 1969, it's been heavy industrial. So does that fit with the pattern of development for this site as well as other industrial? Sure it does. 5, is or will the type of street providing access to the use of this be adequate to serve the proposed special use? Solar's passive, so there is no impact to the streets. Hydrogen power generation from liquid hydrogen, those are engines. There's no impact to the roads there. Cell tower, there's no impact to that. Going to this helicopter port, essentially what we're asking for is a platform about the concrete permeable surface about the size of this room with a few lights on it and maybe some straps to secure a helicopter so we can freight in and freight out whatever's on that site. Because we do have a concern. We only have one road of ingress and egress onto that property. This helicopter would allow us another means of moving freight should something happen to that road. But would it affect the road adversely? Absolutely not. The other part of that though, and I want to share this, we volunteered this to our emergency operations center in Chuck White. Right now, you've got 27,000 acres surrounding us, along with a variety of other people out there in Intercoastal. Anything happens out there, you have no way to medevac anybody out unless you get some sort of helicopter or some sort of vehicle, either out of Kingsland, maybe a naval base, Savannah, Jacksonville. We offered Chuck White the opportunity to have him set up a medical facility, emergency medical facility. So if he has to evac, if he needs a fueling center, if he needs someplace to land a helicopter in the middle of the night to help somebody, he's going to have a large flat surface. We could provide fueling if we had to in a truck, but that's not the issue. The issue is there's absolutely no way to help anyone out there. There's absolutely no platform. We'd offer them keys. We'd offer them an opportunity. They could use that. I think that might benefit our community. Is or will this type, is or will access into and out of the property be adequate to provide for traffic and pedestrian safety and anticipated volume of traffic flow and access to emergency vehicles? Harriet's Bluff Road, we're at the end of Harriet's Bluff Road. Any of those items have absolutely no impact on traffic flow whatsoever. As a matter of fact, for the last 3 miles of Harriet's Bluff Road, it's just conserved real estate. Not only does it have no impact, there's no one living there, but the cell tower has no impact on traffic flow or pedestrian safety, nor does solar, hydrogen fuel cells, certainly not a helicopter pad. Anyway, item number 7, are or will public facilities such as schools, water, sewer, utilities, and police fire protection be adequate to serve the special use? This is no impact on any of those. None. Solar, hydrogen fuel cell, there's no impact on schools with what we've requested. This research for space, we can talk about that in a minute, but none of our requests have any impact on item number 7. Item number 8, or will refuse service, parking and loading areas on the property be located screened to protect other properties in the area from such adverse effects as noise, light, glare, or odor? We are 7 miles from the nearest property. We are isolated. We have been. That property has been isolated for the last 12 years. There's everything from helicopters to all kinds of things happening on that property right now that no one even knows about. We see evidence of it, but the result is no, there will be no impact, no odor, no glare, nothing. Again, we're remote. We are at the end of Harriet's Bluff Road. 9, will the hours and manner of operation of special use have no adverse effects on the other properties in the area? And again, I've got an abandoned 4,000 acres Union Carbide. It's nothing other than the fact that they're going through record cleanup. And I'm surrounded by 27,000 acres of conserved real estate. And this property's been here since 1969. So no, there's absolutely none of these requests are going to have any effect. And that includes this helicopter port. We are going into unrestricted airspace. There are helicopters flying there all the time, whether they're the Navy or private use or DNR or Coast Guard, whatever. But no, there's none of those operations are going to have any effect. And finally, number 10, will the height, size, or location of the buildings or other structures on the property be compatible with the height, size, location of buildings or other structures on neighboring properties? There's nothing. I don't even know how to apply that within 7 or 8 miles from residential, but compatible with? The closest thing we have is the submarine base that's 10 miles away, well beyond their concerns. And they have an 80-foot deck height that they are applying for their submarine dry dock, 80 feet. We can see it from our property, but that's 9.5 miles away. So if we use that as a compatible structure, we're going to be well below 80 feet in our deck height. So this is the criteria that was set. Now, I understand that there's some still up to the commission, and they can provide certain terms and conditions to each of these. But following this criteria, our special use requests fall well within that. Now, let me say this to the last request that we have. We don't launch rockets. We're not launching rockets. We have no intention of launching rockets. However, one firm that we're talking to that does hydrogen fuel cell research and development is creating a fuel cell for the lunar space mission. Now, if that's not jobs, if that's not PhDs, if that's not interns, I don't know what is. Those are high-paying opportunities, but it is directly related to NASA, and it is directly related to space and all those other things. But again, We are not launching, we're not recovering, we're not doing any of those things. Essentially, what we are asking is a special use is to administrate and the operation of that administration on this site so we can work with those entities out there. But in no way are we changing the zoning or any of the other terms and condition of heavy use industrial. We're just not. And I feel like we're in compliance. And I also feel that these threshold requests obviously aren't the final word because we still have to build in accordance with construction, all of the other building code issues that are out there. So that is what we followed. And again, none of it is relevant to the people in the discussion that came before me. This is purely what we're asking for. And again, thank you for entertaining our request.
All right, thank you, sir. All right. In regards to speaking for the opposition, there'll be a 3-minute limit per and a 15-minute overall. So is there anyone, I guess, is anyone desiring to speak in opposition to these special use permits? Mr. Winkle.
That's Steve Winkle. That's the 1,000-page report that was presented for the brownfield application. There's been no.
Just hang on, David. Let him finish his comments and we'll get to it.
It's relevant if he disturbs the earth anywhere to build any of the things that he's proposing to build. These maps, which are included in this document, show all the locations where ground samples were taken. Ground soil sample tests were taken. They were all taken superficial. They were actually done by hand. And they were done at more than 100 locations, I think 170 actually, in 2021. And they're not in the content. In fact, the book says explicitly that they've been removed from the content of this book. And so everything he's asking to do requires that we know that the soil there allows for him to do it. Now, he can move around and find a place that isn't contaminated, maybe. But what we do know is that in his letter, this is his letter, under Space Research and Technology, the interaction with NASA, which he mentioned, would involve everything from biotech to propulsion testing. Blah, 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 including other things related to space exploration. He's showing the spaceport facilities on 2 different maps that are in his cover letter with his application. And these 2 maps show the launch pad complex, shows the launch control center, shows the landing zone reserve. And because he mentions engine propulsion testing, these reports, which have been required since 2004 by the state to the state EPD solid waste division for the Bear property, requires twice-a-year testing. And in this report, immediately following the rocket engine testing on the Union Carbide property, this report shows thousands of times increase in arsenic in the landfill that this report shows absolutely no testing performed. No results. They showed the test, but they didn't perform. And so we have this report from the state since 2004, so that's 15, 19 years. We have 36 of these reports as a history in which none of this information is in here. And so are we opening up a Pandora's box by approving something that is so general that we don't have a clue what he's talking about? How big are the rocket engines? How tall are the cell towers? The impacts on Cumberland Island come from the flashing lights.
Thank you, Mr. Winkle. Is there anyone else? Huh?
Rebuttal.
Well, that's true.
Anybody else speaking?
So what now?
Opposition.
You talking about rebuttal to him? What are you saying?
You can allow him to rebut afterwards.
Huh?
You can allow him to rebut after everyone's.
Yeah, I was gonna let, yeah, he get his, and he can rebuttal.
I apologize. I didn't see Ms. Miller walking in.
Sorry. Okay, so, it's very disturbing that the, toxin reports were removed from Mr. Cole's 1,000-page treatise. I think that's telling, and I think that bears y'all looking at. There's at least, I mean, I went to a Union Carbide meeting a while back, and there were at least 70 dangerous toxins in that land. But it's, like Steve said, it's relevant if he disturbs the earth. And engine testing, even if he doesn't launch any rockets, engine testing could disturb the earth. It could drive those dangerous toxins into the groundwater. And there are people, as Mr. Cole states, within 7 or 8 miles. So I trust you guys to look into the situation, because now he's in charge, or his people are in charge of this very toxic piece of land. And I want to make sure that if this goes forward, that the rules are followed and the reports get done, and he knows that he'll be held to a certain standard. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
So we're here again. I mean, this is silly. Why are we even looking at these requests? He plainly stated, it's listed. Industrial, heavy use. All right, it's listed that. Follow those guidelines. And then if he wants to build something and go out there and disturb the land, let him bring forth the facts and everything, documents, what he wants to do out there. This open-ended is opening up this county, these citizens, y'all, for liability. Because you're going to give him a go-ahead to go ahead and just go out, raise funding, do this and that without any kind of specifications. Approving this stuff is foolish, period. He's got nothing to tell you what he's wanting to do. And no experience.
Is there anyone else? Right, Mr. Cole, you can do your rebuttal.
Sure. And again, let's rein this back. We have people here that are opining on things that they're neither educated to have any kind of environmental engineering, legal, but it's not relevant to my requests. The requests I have are based on a 10-item criteria. This is private property, and we have submitted all the necessary documents working with our engineers and qualified personnel with EPD. But again, I want to stress, this is private property. And what we do and how we conduct these investigations is based on our discretion and not theirs. I want to go back. Let's rein it back to my 6 requests that I've asked. And here's something that I just don't understand. We asked to build a cell tower because there's absolutely no cell service out there. I get stuck out there. Anybody gets stuck out there, they're in big trouble. They fall out of a deer stand, even worse. Cell tower doesn't generate any money. And by the way, we don't want any money from Camden. I want to say that. I also want to say, we don't have any debt either on this. But we don't want any money from Camden. We can suggest ways for you to go apply for some grants if you qualify, but that's your money. We don't want you. We don't want any money. But we do want to make a difference. You don't have any cell service out there. We put a cell tower up, that may save some lives, but I don't know why that was turned down. And it doesn't generate any income. It's $30,000-$40,000 a year for a small little patch, but somebody else builds it and maintain it. But you'd have cell service. However, we do have radar, satellite, and broadcasting already in place. So if we don't build the tower, we can still build a tower accordance with your rules and regulations, sir. But it's already. And secondly, with regard to rocket propulsion, that's already in the zoning. We have rocket propulsion, missile assembly, guidance systems, missile warehouse storage. It's already there. We're not asking for that. What we're asking is that we can openly conduct research with space agencies so we can share that research with the community. And we can do that by asking for that special use, and it's a threshold. It by no means grants us exclusive or any other kind of whatever we want to do as being indicated. It's just it's the first ask in a process of qualifying for any of these things. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does the board have anything? I got one question. You were talking about electric power generation. Were you talking about using hydrogen to generate electricity?
Right now, Plug Power is going to generate about 70 or 80,000 tons of liquid hydrogen a day. That liquid hydrogen, we can work with them. For hydrogen fuel cells, we can work on efficiency. Now, hydrogen fuel cells go into everything from forklifts, which is why Amazon's buying them, all the way to tractor trailers, automobiles, and a variety of other things that require energy. But it's cutting edge. And again, to answer your question, it'll be research and development for hydrogen, using hydrogen fuel cells and the liquid hydrogen being produced that could possibly generate energy either back to Camden or energy for the site to sustain its day-to-day operations, but purely on a research and development basis. And the reason we're following this is because, and again, we can go and ask James Coughlin, you can certainly talk to Steve Howard. Senator Ossoff's leading a campaign, and it'll be released in tomorrow's newspaper, to make Camden the center of this hydrogen hub that's coming in. Now, we've heard promises, but it's genuine. And it's a $9 billion incentive program. And again, speak to others and find out if there's any credibility to it. I believe there is, but we want to align ourselves. At worst case, I'm asking, if you can't decide a yes or no on it, please don't issue a public announcement saying we're against hydrogen fuel cells. That would be a disaster right now, because that's where the world's going. And we have extraordinary opportunity to be a big part of that. So sure, we could use the hydrogen fuel cells that are built to possibly generate additional energy, but the whole point of it is to work with Plug Power and the other entities coming in to create an efficient engine, or maybe a more efficient engine, purely for research and development. Does that help?
Yeah.
It's a long-winded answer. I apologize. Thank you.
Do you have a question?
Well,
Yeah,
not now. I guess
yeah.
we can get to the regular meeting, or
Huh?
should we leave the public here?
We can do it either place. But, seeing no one else, let's, get a motion to adjourn the public hearing and reconvene the regular meeting. So move.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries. We're back into your regular agenda now. Mr. Yakabachi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item will be a request for special use approval to allow electric power generation other than solar and wind. There was no recommendation from the planning commission.
We doing these individually, or you? Okay.
I guess we better take them up individually. What do you think, John? Does it matter?
All right, go on, keep reading. If somebody wants to make a motion to exclude something, we can.
I believe we have to take these up individually.
All right,
Correct me if
we'll
I'm-
take them up individually. All right, we got one item on the table. So could someone get a motion on it? I make a motion for the approval.
Second,
All those in favor?
discussion.
Oh, discussion, sure.
So, and this might be a question for John. So these special use applications, do they attach to the parcel or to the applicant or to both? To the parcel, okay. Second question is there's a 12-month timeline, I believe in our UDC specified for special use permits. How is that defined to when this is issued, compared to when, activity on this use, if granted, would begin versus, how is that laid out?
Yeah, it's when activity begins on
Okay.
that, and then if there's a discontinuance after a 12-month period, I'll bring it back, or it can be disallowed at that time.
Okay,
So there's not a timeline for them to start?
It doesn't state it in the UDC on that time.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
okay, so once it begins,
Yes.
if it's abandoned for a 12-month period, then it goes away. Okay.
Question?
We're here for it, ask questions.
Anybody else? All right. Bring it to a vote. All those in favor? Take it no. Motion carries.
Next item up will be a request for special use approval to allow for solar and wind electric power generation. Planning Commission recommends approval with the condition that it be for solar only.
Motion,
Go ahead.
motion to approve?
Second. Any discussion, questions?
Wind power is not gonna work on land anyway. Maybe offshore Georgia, but solar's, I don't have a problem with solar.
It's kind of behind the barrier island too.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's not in Kansas.
I think it's been proven it don't work in Texas either. All right.
Your motion is so
So only, yes. But actually, it was Commissioner Reddick's motion. All right, all those in favor? Motion carries. Number 3.
Number 3 will be a request for special use approval to allow for semiconductor and other electronic component manufacturing. Planning Commission recommends approval on this item.
All right, if anybody got a motion?
Motion to approve item number 3.
Second.
We have a first and a second. I would think everybody'd be in favor of this. The lack of semiconductors is the bane of our supply chain. Can't build cars. Our watches won't work without them. It's my understanding that 80-90% of the semiconductors in the world are manufactured in Taiwan. That looks like an exciting place to be in the next 6 months to a year. So I think the fact that if we can get semiconductor manufacturing or research and development here, that's the kind of industry that, we want here. And so anyhow, all those in favor? Motion carries. Number 4, I'm sorry.
The next request will be for special use approval to allow for general aviation airports, non-scheduled air transportation. Planning Commission recommends denying this item.
All right. Anybody got a motion for this?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to second it. Discussion. It is private property. And, that's something that seems to be missing with the opposition. This is private property. We're not putting out an airport or spaceport or anything there. You want to call these people crazy? They want to go out there and spend their money and put in a 100 by 100 concrete pad? Okay. They're adding to our digest. We'll just tax them for it.
they want to fly helicopters in and out of there. I think that's great. They won't be traveling things up and down the Harris Bluff Road. I can see a lot of logistical reasons for it, not just to mention the public safety issues. Clearly, the Navy has no issue with it. So, anyone else?
Yeah, I'll just kind of tag along off of that. I mean, I don't believe it's the government's position to analyze the market demand of a business. I think that's left up to free enterprise. So obviously, if this, is not going to be a business that's going to thrive, that's at the applicant's risk, not ours. So.
Now, we're not spending public money. And an individual bought this property with all its glory. Yay. Why aren't we celebrating that? So, with that being said, all those in favor? Motion carries. Anyone, well, is anyone in opposition?
I'm not gonna vote on that.
You're abstaining? Okay. 3 yeas and one abstaining. Let's see, we're on the number 5.
Next item, we request for special use approval to allow for wireless telecommunication antennas and towers. There was no recommendation from the planning commission on this item.
Any motion on this?
Like to
Make a
make
motion, we approve with the stipulation that it's less than 190 feet. So it doesn't require a light on top.
that, well, say maybe good to have a light on it if there's a helipad nearby.
Oh, you want to make a motion? Sorry, I'll second it for discussion.
But I didn't vote for the helicopters.
I understand, but, I'll give you an A for consistency there. But however, we do know that there are a lot of other air traffic in and out of there. Now, what is the proposed height to this? I don't remember now. Is there a proposed height, 150 feet? Wait a minute.
No, sir, there isn't any proposed height.
I mean, let me clarify this. Right now, we're approving it for a cell tower, which, yay. Now, there is no communication out there, even up and down the intercoastal. I know our sheriff operate up and down that intercoastal waterway. It'd probably nice to be able to have a backup cell phone out there somewhere. But aside from that, we're saying he can have a cell tower. I think we're premature limiting it. I mean, when he comes back, if he comes back, and correct me if I'm wrong, which I can be, if he comes back to build a tower, he's got to bring those plans to you. And that at the time you can take up to see what he wants to build, how high. If he wants to build it, if he wants to spend the money to build one 175 feet high and spend the money to put a light on it, I think you ought to have a light on the thing at 100 feet personally, but I don't know.
The requirement is anything over 200 foot.
I can tell you, Mr. Chairman, typically, anyone that has ever proposed, in my time of serving as a director, anyone that has ever proposed a tower has went through the FAA, no matter how high.
Exactly.
Right, they got to do that. No
Exactly.
matter.
So I think setting a height limit at this point is moot, irrelevant. So
Okay, I'll amend my motion to just approve the cell tower and
Second.
strike the height.
all right, we got a first and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Next item will be a request for special use approval to allow for space research and technology. The Planning Commission recommends approval on this item.
Motion for approval. Item number 6.
Second.
We got a first and a second. Once again. Yay. That's the kind of technology and development we've been trying to bring to this county. Not hamburger joints. This is high-tech industry that, you children and folks will have an opportunity to utilize. So, anybody got any more they want to abstract? All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Yakabachi.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Mr. Spears, you're the next contestant.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you for giving me a couple of minutes tonight. I've got something that should be relatively straightforward. I'm here to ask that the Board of Commissioners consider the approval of awarding the bid for employee health benefits brokerage to USI Insurance Services out of Savannah, Georgia. As you know, Camden County contracts with a health insurance broker for many reasons, but two of the most important being that we want to ensure that we're getting the best products for our employees, and number two being that we get those products at the best price for our citizens. Camden works with a broker to ensure that we have the competitive pricing with our various insurance carriers. They go to market to make sure that we're getting the best deals with Aetna, MetLife, all these different types of things, and they bring the best options to us is the purpose of the broker. So the last RFP for these broker services was done in 2017, and that's why we've completed the RFP. It's been 5 years. If you remember, Mary Smith was our broker for quite some time. She retired in 2017, so that was the last time that we looked at this. We are currently with USI Insurance Services. They've been our broker for employee health and benefits for the last 5 years. They are also our broker for P&C insurance, property and casualty insurance as well. But this is just for the employee health brokerage side. So Camden County currently contracts, like I said, with USI Insurance Services health brokerage at a cost of $17,500 a year, paid in equal monthly installments of $1,458.33. In September, Camden County Human Resources initiated RFP P23-1555-11 for the brokerage services, and we received 8 respondents within the required time period, which is a large amount for what this type of thing usually is. What's interesting is we had 3 additional respondents that were disqualified for various reasons. A couple of them were received after the bid of when they were supposed to get here, and then one of them didn't notarize part of the stuff that they were supposed to do, so we had 3 additionals that were disqualified. So employees of the Camden County Human Resources and Employee Benefits Department scored the respondents for cost and services, concluding that continuing the relationship with USI Insurance Services provides the best option. Their service has been fantastic, but notably, they are actually willing to reduce the price that they pay us by 31%. We currently pay $17,500 a year. They are going to reduce that to $12,000 a year. Reason for that being is we do so much work inside the department. For example, if somebody's got a dispute with their medical bill or they need a new dental ID card, these are things that you could call the broker for and have them get those things done for you. But we do all that stuff in-house, and we're very proud of that. So with that, you can see on the page in your packet there, you've got the bid tabulation, which shows all of those things, USI being the first column that's listed for respondents. And you can see that they're at, $12,000 a year. These obviously would be the standard 1-year contracts that are renewed with the fiscal year, but these have additional year options. What's great about this one is USI's given us $12,000 a year for the next 5 years if we continue to engage with them. So that's fantastic. You can look at the one that's next to it. Over a 5-year period would have been $275,000. This was wholly $209,000 cheaper than one of the other respondents gave us. So with that, I know it's kind of long-winded, but with that, I would ask that the Board of Commissioners approve the bid award for Camden County Health and Benefits Brokerage to USI Insurance Services out of Savannah, Georgia.
With that being said, could we get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. We got the first and second. Y'all want to ask him anything?
Yeah, I just want to say, great job. You rarely see stuff go down. So
Oh, man.
Thank you.
took it right out of
We're
your mouth.
exceptionally proud of the program we
Here,
administer.
throw this at him. Roll me,
Counties that are 10 times our size often reach out to us to ask how we administer our program.
Trevor?
It's something we're very proud of.
Thank you. Good job. He's correct. Obviously, that's an evidence in that reduction that we're doing something right. You're not over there playing solitaire all the time.
That's right.
All right, anyhow, could we get a vote on this, please? All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Landon was in the wings.
Excuse me.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Eric Landon. I have before you a request to authorize submission to the Department of Treasury for local assistance and tribal consistency funds. Long acronym, but essentially it's an extension of the ARPA program And it's payment in lieu of taxes for property that's managed by the Department of Interior. And Camden County is eligible because we have a large area that's managed by the Department of Interior.
Yeah.
So the feds have stated that they're really inconsistent about paying these funds. And as part of the ARPA program, they are willing to provide Camden County with two $50,000 payments.
All right. Anybody got a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
We got some first and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman. Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir.
So I come to you tonight to ask you for, help us purchase a new boat, just to help relocate some funds that we have in our budget to help fund a boat that will replace one of our boats that's actually no longer serviceable due to water damage. And we had some insurance money that came back through that. But we had to relocate some other money inside the budget to help us be able to purchase this boat. And that's where we're at.
Gotcha. All right. Does anybody have a motion on this?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got some first and a second.
Is this question, this is the one where I think y'all were trying to get some motors replaced or something on it?
Yes, sir. So the McKee Craft actually had some water damage, took on a lot of water.
Okay.
And we fixed the issue as far as the second sail face. So we got some sensors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this is the one where, yeah, the boat thing, we got the money, but you can't get the motors.
Right. Motor's
Right.
about 15 months to order.
Wow.
15, yeah, you've got one on order already,
Yeah,
and
it'd
it's
be
a
next-
15-month delay. So it doesn't matter whether you got a boat or not, you got no motor.
That's right.
And of course, this one here, you just happened upon one day when you were out at,
Hickory Bluff.
Hickory
By
Bluff
accident.
Marina. I said, maybe we could follow that boat around. He doing bad things, we could take it.
Yes, sir.
But you decided to ask if you could buy it off of them first.
We're in the right way.
I'm generous. So anyway, you inquired and found out there was some other there. You inquired out, yeah, they'd sell it.
Yes, sir.
There's, and back and forth, we've had discussions, you can't get a boat, I personally know someone who's ordered a boat a year ago and still waiting on it. Something similar. You can't get motors. You're one boat down. Well, let's say that's the old saying, you got one foot in the grave on the other on a banana peel, cause that contender you got, it's
15 years old, and it's actually has to go in for remodeling now. It's going to be down for about 8 months.
don't be knocking the 50-year part.
15.
There's some life in it.
15.
15.
Oh, 15, okay.
Yeah.
Well, still, so.
Boat no run, boat
Huh?
no fun. Boat no run, boat no fun.
But no run, boat no fun. I
Pretty
agree.
easy.
So anyway, we've had the rivercraft. This is something, I guess, predominantly in the intercoastal area and other events that take place. We realize that, as stated in here, this is not the ideal way of purchasing stuff. We usually try to do the RFPs. He's gotten quotes on other boats and new boats, but it's kind of disingenuous to get a quote on a new boat that you can't get. Anyway, I guess kind of where we at the point right now, the boat motor, I think the consensus is worth the price that you're paying. You're utilizing monies that was already in the sheriff's budget, and you're just repurposing some. We've had that discussion with Ms. Gonzalez and Debbie at the sheriff's office to make sure that's aligned up correctly. So this is, I guess, an example of a bird in the hand's worth two in the bush. So you got a boat that you can go get, I guess, tomorrow.
Did we approve a new boat a few meetings or a couple months
Huh?
ago? Didn't we talk about a new boat? a
No,
while
he
back?
pulled it.
No? Oh, okay.
They pulled it. It was but even if we had it, he won't have it for.
Well, I mean, that was my point. At some point we ought to, if the supply chain issues don't loosen up, we ought to look ahead in the near future. And if we do need some boats, then go ahead and get them on order now.
Right.
And anticipate, a 2-year lead time or whatever the case may be.
And that would be something to consider. Yes, I agree.
Thank you.
I just kind of wanted to go all over some of the background. This isn't like, oh, we got a boat, let's buy a boat. There's logic and reasoning behind it.
Anyhow, with that being said, all those in favor? All right. You got yourself a boat now. Don't sink it. Do what? Am I forgetting something?
Yeah, we got the right of way.
Oh, I know.
Item 10.
Yeah, I haven't. I thought there was something else going on. Now this brings up the, item number 10. This is the, Department of Transportation. You know, we're talking about doing anyway. How about the White Oak Creek Bridge that we've already done? So at this point in time, gonna get a motion on the acceptance of the right-of-way deed.
So moved.
Second. We're giving it to.
We're
them.
accepting.
Granted, yes. Let's retract, I'm retracting everything I said. Somebody make a correct motion that we're granting this property to the Department of Transportation. I'll say it. I make a motion to grant the deed right away, property deed for the right of way used for the White Oak Creek Bridge replacement to the Georgia Department of Transportation.
Second.
We struggled through a first and now we have a second. So now can we get a vote? Amen. Motion carries. Ms. Bishop, what have you done to the calendar?
Nothing yet, but the December meeting will be moved due to strategic planning from December 13th to December 6th. And we will vote on that at the next meeting to amend the calendar.
The best you got?
That's all I have.
Mr. Howard, anything? All right, this brings us to our final public comment sections. Is there anyone desiring to address the board? Well, I saw the young lady here. Ladies first. You'll just state your name and address.
My name is Ann Sullivan Weston, and it's not that I want to make a public comment on what went on, but I would like to thank the board for honoring our request for the proclamation, which Ms. Jackson, Alicia Jackson is the president of the union. And I would like to let you know that I am the Camden County teacher who attended the Educators Conference between the United States and China in 2006. Yes, I was a volunteer to travel with People to People International, which they are not in function now.
Really?
I would like to know that.
Well, thank you. Congratulations. The only what? Pre-K teacher. All right.
One more.
Yeah. Well, I saw some other hands, David. I'm gonna probably get them. I know there was a couple other hands back there. I saw the guy in the green. I saw his hand go up first. You in the green shirt? Yes, sir. Come on up, state your name and address and.
My name is Keith Allen. I live at 3834 Colesburg Tompkins Road. And I'm asking how do we go about trying to set forth to get that road paved? Because that road it's a heavily traveled road. There are more people living on the road. You know, you guys do maintain it as best you can, but during heavy rains, those roads become and unless you have a 4x4 truck, it's very hard to get out one way or the other. So I was trying to find out what we need to do, what petitions need to be signed, what forms need to be filled out to try to get that road paved.
All right, great question. What we need to do is I need to get with, Ms. McNamee is not here today. So, Steve, if you get somebody to follow up, if you'll get your information and she's in charge of our public works and then we'll see where it is.
You got it. Okay.
Steve will get it. All right, anyone else? Go ahead, David.
See,
Huh?
see something?
I want everyone to know, I think at best, maybe I've had a cup of coffee with Commissioner Blunt, maybe a cup of coffee, a few conversations with Mr. Howard. I want you to know first, Mr. Howard's brilliant. What he's done for this community, nobody will even know for a very long time. He's known in California. He's known by SpaceX. He's known by everybody at Georgia Tech for pulling off a miracle. Now, granted, $10 is a lot of money around my house, and spending $10 million in a community that doesn't have it, that's understandable. It's understandable, but never really gave it the chance. What he's done for this community, what he's done in addition to economic opportunity for a rural community is extraordinary. And I've never heard anybody say it, because I don't think y'all are allowed to say. I know, and I've seen it. He's just brilliant. And I heard that. Had an event in Atlanta, everyone came. SpaceX, Blue Origin came. Those alphabet firms that we've heard about, like CSA, NSA, CIA, they're all aware. What he pulled off is extraordinary. Elon Musk can't get a launch license. Little old Spec Camden in middle of nowhere got a launch license. So I don't think y'all fully understand what you're losing here. He's done. And again, nothing for me. I mean, maybe a cup of coffee on occasion. But I wouldn't know his family or anybody else from a bucket of paint. But I've watched what he's done. Extraordinary. Secondly, Commissioner Blunt, there are times that you probably don't like me. Probably right now. But I got to tell you, you guys have done an extraordinary job. And the economic opportunities you're bringing to this little tiny community that nobody knows about, or the adversity you've had to deal with, the positive attitude, vision, it's absolutely incredible. And it won't take a moment, but you're going to see these things start to come to you now. And it's turning. And I can't thank y'all enough. And I'm just a spectator. I'm somebody who's involved, but I've seen it and I've never seen it. I've worked all over the United States. This is the best group. This is the most, I don't know how else to describe it, but far reaching, any other community that I've dealt with. And I can't thank you enough. And Mr. Howard, again, thank you for what you've done. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Is there anyone else? Mr. Winkle.
Set your timer.
No word, people.
Plug Power has already invested in our community, and they're producing, or will be producing very soon, liquid hydrogen for fuel cells. I'm sure they'd like to have more competition in the area. And I'm sure that they got a good deal from our JDA to locate in our Joint Development Authority Industrial Park. I'm sure they'll be glad to hear that they have competition. The cell tower that was approved by Verizon, for Verizon a year and a half ago and permitted on Harriet's Bluff Road hasn't been built yet. It will serve the entire area that was discussed tonight about the cell tower that might be much shorter on this particular property and will service the entire area, including Cumberland and Little Cumberland Island. G5 service, along with the service that is necessary to reach all of Harriet's Bluff Road and the water. And y'all know that because it's the subject of a lawsuit. Because the county turned it down to begin with, and they were forced to allow the tower to be built. It just hasn't been built yet. So whether this other tower gets built, and whether it's for cell service or for radar, we need radar on that tower. Let's see what Cumberland Island National Seashore has to say about your plans to allow for the impositions. I know it's a big laugh. Okay, and I'm sure you feel like you have it in the pocket with them, but they can marshal, you do get 60,000 visitors a year to Cumberland Island. Helicopters won't just be over Harriet's Bluff Road. They'll be over my home and my subdivision. and about 1,000 other homes between I-95 and this site. Heavy lift helicopters. And if they're not there, they might be flying over the hunter as he gets a bead on the 12-pointer that's on the WMAs, which are part of the conservation land. You think they'll be happy to know about that? No consequences to any of these things. What about the 7,500-foot required hazard zone from the spaceport launch pad? That's not even a condition of anything, unless it's in the MOU that you keep secret between the county and this gentleman's corporation that no longer exists. And that 7,500-foot hazard zone uses 500 acres of this land. I didn't hear mention of any of that tonight. And then I'm sure that Mr. Cole has heard from all of those alphabet companies about the glories of Mr. Howard's contributions to Spaceport Camden. And by the way, as the Spaceport project lead, we have produced for $12 million. How many jobs? How many jobs? Can we count them on one hand or one finger? And so all of this glorious talk is just talk. And you pay no attention to the voters.
Expertise and everything never ceases to amaze me. Anyone else? Your areas of expertise completely astound me. Anyone else? Huh?
Go ahead, Trevor.
Oh, no, that's okay.
All right. At this time, I'd like to get a motion to adjourn the meeting and convene an executive session.
So moved.
Second.
We got a first and a second. Can we get a vote? All those in favor? We're in it. We get a motion to adjourn the,
Executive session.
executive session, reconvene the regular meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor? Motion carries. We're back in the meeting. Is there any motions that need to be brought forward for the board this time?
Yes, I've got two motions. The first one is, I'd like to make a motion to appoint County Attorney John Myers to serve as interim county administrator effective November 15th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries.
Second motion
My
is,
condolences.
the second motion is to enter into professional services agreement with Colin Basinger and Associates for executive recruiting of the county administrator position.
Second. We have a first and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Can I make a
Further
motion?
Huh?
Can I make a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I would,
Katie wants to stay a little longer.
I'd like to make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in.
All in favor? Dang.